So, I know this isn't usually within my realm of figures I review on the channel, but for those who've stuck around for a while now will know I love myself some Star Wars and I love myself some comic book stuff. An awesome figure is an awesome figure. I'm a late 80s, early 90s kid, so stuff like Conan the Barbarian, Skeleton Warriors, all those kind of fantasy themed properties were my jam growing up. And this guy here reminds me of all of that. Of course, Savage Crucible is its own thing, with its own lore and story, which makes it even more interesting. This guy here was sent out to me by the good people at Harvinger Studio, the creators of Savage Crucible, and Nin Vilimir is one out of 8 figures and accessory packs in Wave 1 of their line. If you're not familiar with Savage Crucible and Harvinger Studio, they're an independent company run by collectors for collectors. The line started as a Kickstarter, which was successfully backed, and now you can find Wave 1 of their figures on sites like Big Bad Toy Store, although I think they're all sold out the last time I checked. Alright, so the things I like about this figure. There is sculpted details everywhere you look. Lizard, reptilian, scale texture. Armored pieces are sharp, shiny, with some very nicely applied copper paint to give you more of a weathered, war-torn effect. The armor pieces are a softer plastic, not flimsy, but still malleable enough to get out of the way of your basic articulation. Although I've spent an entire day, more than an entire day, with this guy in my hands, kind of hurts, so do be careful when you, handle those sharp armor pieces. Speaking of softer plastics, I like how the figure uses different materials, hard plastics, soft plastics, ratchety type joints, but the good type of ratchety type joints that allow a good range between each click but still feels firm. The figure also has a nice matte finish for the body and again, a nice satin finish for the armored pieces. Paint apps are aplenty, from the weathering on the armor to all your lizardy stripes and patterns on the body. Not to mention they're applied well. For my copy, everything seems to be pretty clean. The eyes are crisp, the tongue is painted up well. Yes, the mouth does open to reveal all the teeth that have paint applied to them as well. I really like the size. It's a lizard man, so he's bigger than most of your 6-inch human figures. If you're collecting Mythic Legions or anything of that nature, it fits right in. But I want this for my Berserk display, and next to Guts, he sizes up perfectly. The aesthetics also match up well with that medieval fantasy theme. This guy here is a named character, Nin Vilimir, so he does have a background story or origin. There's a passage on the inside of the flip cover which gives you a rundown of Nin Vilimir's story. Interesting read if you're into that sort of thing. Personally, I appreciate that kind of stuff. It gives you a bit more depth into what you're buying, and I believe these characters are a part of a graphic novel too. And you can find all of those details on their website, which I'll have a link in the description. Something that I really like about this series is that the armor is interchangeable and removable amongst the other figures. Makes customization possible, great for army building if you want to give your troops slightly different looks. There are accessory packs which are also available, so while I was giving this guy a hot bath to loosen up all the joints, I also took off all the armor to see what was underneath. The armor itself is made from a softer, more durable enough plastic that it's not going to break when you take it off. It's pretty easy to remove. The shoulder armor pieces are attached via ball joints on the back of the shoulders, so they come off nicely. The chest armor is held together by 2 straps on the left and the right side of the torso. You just take them off the tabs and Bob's your uncle. Comes off nice and easy too. The lower torso armor, however, you got to do the old heat and pop. I was already giving this guy a warm bath anyway, so removing the lower torso armor was just part of the process. The gauntlets and shin armor do come off as well, but we'd be left with a figure without any arms and legs for the rest of the review. Like I mentioned, there are accessory packs that you can swap out those arm and leg armor pieces as well. So again, lots of potential for kit bashing and whatnot. The tail armor, though, is permanently sculpted to the tail, so that's the only thing that I guess you can't swap out. Although, if you really wanted to, the tail is removable since it's made up of double ball pegs. And here it is, almost naked lizard Dino Man. Again, incredible detail. And if you like your warriors in the more feral, savage kind of look, this works perfectly. I feel like this is the character in his early days, finding his way through the ranks and slowly acquiring his full armor that you see him don now. Anyway, lots of fun to be had customizing, getting that look that you want with this and other figures for that matter. Alright, so let's take a look at the articulation, but before that, a few side notes. The first thing, before you start posing this guy around, hit it with some heat. Like the package says at the bottom of the flap that I showed you at the beginning of the video, make sure you use a hairdryer or hot water and hit it with some heat, because all of those tight joints will free up totally, and the articulation is just so much better for it. I took it out of the package initially, tried posing it around. A bit tough to, move those arms and legs around initially, but after I, gave it the hot water bath, it freed it up. And it's just so much more easier to pose now that those joints are freed up. I also hit those joints with some hobby oil, which made the joints even easier to move around after that. But make sure, again, you hit it with some heat, hairdryer, or warm bath. But yeah, let's have a look at the articulation. First things first, the head articulation. So it is a double ball peg. You don't get an independent neck joint, but you get a thick double ball peg. So you do get some decent range going up. Well, it's not really going up. It's kind of, horizontal. But it does look down that much. You get side-to-side rotation, and you do get a little bit of tilt. One thing that I do wish, and it might not have benefited too much. Alright, let's take a look at the articulation, but a very important side note before we begin. Like I showed you at the back of the box in the beginning of the video, make sure you hit this guy with some heat before you start articulating him or posing him around. Hit it with a hairdryer, give him a hot, warm bath just to free up those joints, and you will thank me that you did, because it just loosens up all those tight joints and makes it so much easier to pose. All those, you could be missing out on a ton of articulation if you just pulled it out straight from the box and started posing it, which is what I did. But after giving this guy a hot, warm bath, it just made the articulation so much easier to pose. It gave it so much more articulation that I thought it didn't have, and I even went the extra mile as into giving it some hobby oil, shock oil, put in the joints, freed it up, and now it just poses so much better. So make sure you hit it with some heat, hairdryer, warm water, and it'll make your figures so much better. First up, let's have a look at the head articulation. Head goes up. Not the best. Goes down. It is on a double ball peg. It's not an independent neck joint, which I think would have given it a bit more articulation, but I can understand there are limitations. Even so, I think if they don't decide to go with a independent neck joint, maybe what they could have done was to give it like an angle. Instead of having a straight ball peg, do the the Marfex route where they have like an angled double ball peg. So that way it would have at least given a bit more range going up, which is kind of what I wanted with like lizard kind of characters, because when you make use of that ab crunch and when you're having kind of hunching down, his head is always kind of just looking down, which, you want him to look up a little bit. So I wish we got a little bit more range in the head. He does look side to side, which is great. And you do get some left and right tilt as well. Also, the jaw is articulated. It is on a hinge, which is fantastic. Love the detail inside the mouth. Looks fantastic. Love the tongue there. Looking at the shoulders, this guy has some very impressive butterfly joints. So yes, you can get him to hold his sword with both hands, which is very, very useful for sword-wielding characters like this. The shoulders do move 90 degrees. You just got to work at it. The armor does get in the way a little bit, but if you do remove the armor pieces, I'll show you here, it is on a ball joint, like so. You can see that, you know, has no trouble whatsoever. So I'll just leave that off for now, just to show you guys the full extent of his arms. But we do have a bicep swivel. The bicep itself is actually a floating piece, but we also have a single jointed elbow. It gets 90 degrees. It's not the best range, but what I do like is that it really hides that joint really, really well. It's just like a seamless part. I really like that bit of engineering. The gauntlet here does swivel, as you can see, but you also get a swivel there at the elbow as well. So, you know, whether you want to use that or not, that bit of articulation is there. Very similar to the Clone Troopers in the Black series. For his hands, for the gripping hands, the hands do hinge up and down, which is correct for weapon holding hands, for sword holding hands. And going on to the ab articulation, the ab section, you get some really good range. It is a two-piecer. We get the upper torso and the lower torso, and they're both on double ball pegs. So really good range going forward, and that's, you know, with the armor pieces on, which is great. You do get a little bit of like gap there at the back, but that's okay. Going back, just as good. Again, a bit of a gap there at the front, but that's okay. I'm cool with that. Swivel at the waist, fantastic. And again, yeah, just really good range there in the torso. Look at that. Fantastic stuff. I really, really like that. Even with all the armor pieces on there, nothing gets in the way. Just to mention, the armor pieces are a softer plastic. I mean, it's not, you know, rubbery soft, but it is soft enough that it does get out of the way. The middle piece here is on a peg, so it does come off, but the side armor pieces here are attached, and it is a floating piece on the waist. Legs, fantastic range going out, really good spready there. Kicks forward about this much. Doesn't kick back at all because the way the butt is sculpted there, but that's okay. We get some thigh swivel, double knees, pretty good range. The armor does get in the way, but you know, that's pretty good range, I think. The feet do go down really well, go up nicely as well. We do get some fantastic ankle pivot and a toe hinge. The tail is also articulated. It is a hinge and a swivel at the base, but each individual section here of the tail does move freely, and they are on ball joints, so you can pose it any way that you want. The other bit of articulation that I'm not, I hope that they will improve with future waves, is that I do appreciate the toe hinge. It's great. I do like toe hinges with my figures. But because this guy is kind of top heavy, when it leans forward, there isn't enough friction with the toe hinge to keep it balanced. So, I mean, it does stand straight, no problems, but you just kind of have to balance it where the weight is leaning on the back of the heel instead of the front feet. So just keep that in mind. I mean, other than the head articulation, just wanting a little bit more range going up, and just maybe tightening up the toe hinge, it has fantastic articulation. Really, really fun to pose. I mean, again, even with all of the armor pieces, it's just really, really well done. So, top marks there. So if you don't count the armor as an accessory, Nin Vilimir comes with 2 weapons. His main blade, a long curved sword, which looks phenomenal. I really, really like this. The hilt has this sculpted serpent design to it, which extends to this huge blade painted up in a shiny, but not too shiny, gunmetal. But you also get these chips in the sword as well, like it's actually been in battle. This is a war-torn blade that's seen some pretty epic and bloody battles, and I love the detail. We also get a pretty cool dagger, gold accents on the handle, and some silver paint for the blade. We also get this elixir bottle. Well, I like to think of it as a elixir bottle. Pretty cool looking, with a mushroom peg that you can attach to either side of the armor. Last but not least, we get 2 open hands, which, like the rest of the figure, is highly detailed and hinges up and down like the fists. The only thing that I wish this guy came with was some kind of weapons storage, not necessarily a sheath, but some kind of sling for the sword, or at least the knife. Other than that, love what we got. Again, I have to thank Harvinger Studio for sending this out to me. This isn't the first time a company has offered to send me out stuff to review, but it is the first time I've accepted. I don't usually buy or review stuff that I know I won't like, so with this, I was already pretty excited going into the review. I don't think my review will do much in terms of helping this line take off, but as a reviewer who mainly covers anime stuff from larger companies, this was certainly a breath of fresh air for me. Again, I do collect other lines, so this isn't completely new to me, but it is the first time to look at an independent property by a smaller company, and to see how much love and care and attention went into this figure is really inspiring. This is a line for collectors, made for collectors, so it feels special, and you can see it in the beautiful packaging, the background story, the lore they've come up with for each character, and of course the figure itself. If you're into fantasy themed stuff, if you collect Mythic Legions or anything of that nature, or just love awesome figures, I think this is definitely a line you'll want to pick up. I'm hoping to get my hands on a couple more. I'm looking at you, Royal Guard, but if you want more information about Savage Crucible and what they're offering, I'll have a link to their website in the description, so go check it out. And that's it from me, guys. Again, thank you Harvinger Studio for sending this out to me. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Likes and comments are always appreciated. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one, which should be the reissue Super Saiyan God Goku. Have a good one, guys, and as always,